Welcome back to the Kickstart Garage. I'm your host, Gavin Quigley, and I'm joined by my co host, Sam John Byrne. Today, we're excited to be speaking with the founder and managing director of Mór Gin, among other things, of course, which we'll get into a little bit later, Eoin Bara. Owen, thanks for joining us this evening. How are you getting on?
Oh, grand lads. How about you guys?
Very good, very good. Looking forward to jumping into things this evening. Owen, you've got quite a decorated history in web development, user experience, and like I say, you're obviously managing director of More Gin at the moment. Do you want to give us a bit of a background story on yourself and the early days growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Tullamore, County Offaly, to an Iranian dad and an Irish mum. My mum was going to become a nun, and the nuns, she was having problems with her knees and praying. So the nun said, "Hey, maybe you should go off to London for a little bit and see if you really want to become a nun." Where she met my dad, who was working for, surprise, surprise, an oil company. Um, which led them to live in the desert for a while. After all that Iran-Iraq war stuff, they moved back and they settled in County Offaly, which seems like the safest place from conflict you could ever imagine. So that's where I grew up. So I grew up with my grandparents, my maternal grandparents. My granddad was a distiller for Tullamore Jew, and my grandmother a housewife. And I would have spent lots of time running around the canal or around the mountains up in Sleeve Blooms. So how I got into tech was I was a really nerdy child. Wasn't very good at school because I just didn't have the attention span to kind of bother with it. It was just a little bit too easy, and then I just fell behind and all this sort of stuff. But I was really fascinated by the idea of building stuff. So that's how I kind of got into it. My brother went and did computer science in college and was like, maybe you should get a computer and try this stuff, and just kind of fell into it.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. You obviously started off in that world of tech. Was it a case of like you say, your brother getting you into it? Did you know for a fact when you were in school that you wanted to get into it after school, and that was kind of how your career was going to start, or were the things all just kind of happen randomly?
I was kind of doing it during school, like I was fixing computers. The idea I kind of wanted to be a network engineer and like build networks and things like that. That was kind of one of those things that I wanted to do. How I fell into UX and design was I was quite good at figuring things out and planning things out strategically, and then figuring out how to build them. So I ended up doing quite a lot of design work, building websites, working for website companies, and then I ended up going to the UK, working for a company called StudioNet, and kind of being introduced to the concept of UX, which was quite early days. I know that sounds like ridiculous now because UX is a thing, whereas before it was design or graphic design. And UX was this kind of concept, and it was all kind of based around UIs and how they worked. And then, like before that, you were a designer of web apps or you're a designer of websites, and now it's just kind of all amalgamated into one. Given like front end standards have become such a thing, and front end libraries and building patterns and pattern libraries. Whereas like back in the early days, oh God, I sound so old. Back in the early days of like Web 2, you had to kind of figure out what sort of pattern it was going to use. So like drop down menus, how do you actually handle multiple layers of drop downs? Um, there was all these things that we're just figuring out and building out while we were figuring out the internet.
So fast forward now, you've got your own gin company, and I got to ask, why gin and why not whiskey?
Well, one, I didn't have the money to do whiskey, and in fairness, if I did have the money to do whiskey, I would do it. But I fucking love gin, and that's kind of the long and short of it. I really do enjoy the flavors, the concept, being able to be so creative with the spirit, and be able to kind of have flavors and combinations that you wouldn't get in any other sort of drink.
So going from being employed to self-employed, I could see you worked for a software company before as well as Amazon Web Services. What was that transition like, and did you feel that your day to day changed much?
So I went from working for myself and running a team to going and working for a big company. Um, and it was a little bit strange because, like, working for myself, we'd always been in on contracts. Like, we'd be called into bigger companies all the time. You'd work for Intel, or you'd work for some big blue chip brand, and you'd kind of fit into their processes. You'd solve the problem and you'd leave. Um, Whereas with Amazon have their very unique and exacting standard. So they have these leadership principles that they operate by. They have an operating procedure called OP1, which is basically what's operational priority one, what are we committing to getting done. And it operates at a different level. They also have the hiring bar for Amazon is second to none. Like, you want to know why Amazon's so successful? It's because of their hiring standards. They literally hire the best people, give them incredibly difficult work, and let them at it. But the pace is very different in comparison to running your own company. It's a lot slower. You need far more decisions and to go up chains. The whole authority, like, you've got like multiple levels of managers. You can't just bulldoze like you do when you when you work with yourself or you work as a consultant.
And are you still typically doing the 9 to 5, or are you working different hours every day? What's your kind of daily routine like?
So it all really depends. Like, pre-COVID, I was doing a lot of work in the States. So a lot of my evenings would have been on calls, and I'd be on calls until about 11 p.m. at night. Now it's a little bit different. My day generally starts around, I'd say it always starts around 10:30, and I finish up around 4. And that's just me just trying to spend less time working, but do more quality work.
Yeah, I think everyone has that kind of sweet spot during the day where, they're fully awake and their brain is functioning. You find that just zen where you can just get a solid 2 hours without getting distracted. I think it's just at a different time for everyone in the day. So I think it's something that probably benefits the entrepreneur or the founder, a little bit more than when you're just stuck to that 9 to 5 time frame.
Oh, I definitely think that for me is like after midnight. It is like, but it's not sustainable. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to carve out 2 or 3 hours during the day and just be like, okay, don't distract me.
Yeah, something I do is like mine's probably like early, I would say. Probably from like 10 until 12. I know that I'm just like my most creative, I'd probably be more of a morning person, but I know that I need to just throw my phone away from that period or I'm gonna just end up completely disrupting my day. And that window is what kind of determines whether or not my day is going to be productive or not. But the thing that I've found from chatting with and researching different entrepreneurs is that it's never really a once off. There are like a handful of failures before the success everyone hears about, so to speak. And you launched More Gin there back in 2015, but were there any other entrepreneurial efforts before then? Was it always in your head, like to end up working for yourself?
Well, I had V7, which was a design agency, which was good, but we kind of fell foul of we had a couple of contracts that went a little bit bad. We hired one or two employees that just weren't really up to the standard. Um, and as a consulting company or as a kind of agency, your people are really what makes the company. And when they get fed up with you, they'll cancel your contract, and it's all pretty ruthless. So that's kind of what happened there. So that was kind of the first. I wouldn't say it was a failure, but I would say it was a learning experience, and I was pretty much done with it. So then set up More Gin, and then I set up a company called Tipple, which is a technology company, um, which, surprise, surprise, is all based around alcohol. Um, when I was building out more, we wanted to do direct sales to consumers across Europe, and it was a legal and logistical nightmare from a tax compliance point of view, from a logistics point of view. So I rang up one of the guys I used to work with at Amazon. I was like, "Hey, I've got this idea. Um, I figured out how to do it. It's taken me 2 years. Do you think we could turn this into a platform?" And that's what we ended up doing. So now what we do is we allow other brands to use our legal and legal and logistical infrastructure to sell online directly from their own websites.
Fantastic. And what's like your time split then between the two? Is it kind of like 50-50, or is it every week different with both of them?
It's a little bit different because when people go, oh well, you've got two projects going on, they immediately assume that you're working on both at the same time. Whereas it's kind of ebbs and flows. So with one project, I'm waiting on compliance from some country to come back. So I'm working on more. I'm waiting on a distributor to come back, or I'm waiting on something. So it's generally just flipping and flopping. So the way I work quite often is that I have tasks, and I break them down into urgent and important, and then I kind of rank them, and I try to use that per day as well. So I sit down and I plan my day in the morning. Sometimes it goes to plan, sometimes it doesn't. So
Yeah, it's something I think affects a lot of different entrepreneurs, especially when you're managing a company. Like you can plan out a week or even like a day, and by halfway through it, things are just all over the place. But I remember we had a guest on the show, a guy called Devin Hughes, who you might know as well. He's part of the Magnate community, good friend of Gareth Flowers. And a guy I looked up to a lot. When Devin's idea for his current company, Buy Me, was born, he spent something like 18 months doing like market research. He kind of ironically or funnily enough, he got a job working for Salesforce, just to immerse himself in the inner workings of a platform business before even launching the company. Now, 18 months obviously sounds pretty crazy to me. I don't think I could do that myself. But did you feel that need to do a whole lot of market research and like recipe testing and stuff before launching more gin, or did you just jump straight in?
uh, yes and no. So I drank a lot. I did a lot of market research. So we were buying in strange gins from the US and like anything I could find and get my hands on that was unusual. This is like late 2014, early 2015. Um, so I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to make something that was very much a classical gin, but had a signature taste. And the idea of a signature taste was that if someone put a blindfold over you and put a gun to your head and said, "Hey, I want you to drink these three drinks, and if you can tell me what they are, I'll let you live." Now, this may be a hypothetical situation, but um, I wanted that sort of recognition that someone will go, "Okay, well, that's Hendrix. You know exactly what that is." Or you go, "That's Plymouth, and that's more." So I wanted something that we could own. So uh, the idea of a dry gin with a raspberry finish kind of came about, and it almost wasn't a raspberry finish. It was almost a blackberry finish. And it was 18 months of playing with a still, different recipes, forcing my housemates to drink these recipes and rank them, which was hilarious in the beginning. But then when you're like, okay, family, come around, um, let's drink again, and they're like, oh, and I don't think I can. It's a Sunday. There was things like that where it's like you really start to exhaust the favors. Um, but yeah, so the recipe came down to I think it was C or D, which was the like last two, and I think we went for C, and it was the raspberry finish.
I assume when launching a drinks business would require a lot of upfront capital, especially around the period where you're trying to, establish your brand. What was the first 12 months like for More Gin? And were there, moments of serendipity, or was it a case of just, contacting as many stores and bars as possible just to get the product out there?
So it's kind of funny because we set up the company about a year before we launched. So in 2015, I'm doing all these trials and doing all these tastes and all that sort of stuff. I'm running V7, the design agency, and Connor, who's a guy that we've hired, myself and him are working on the brand. Um, so then you're trying to figure out all these other things like legals, like where you're going to put your still. Does your building have to have four solid concrete walls and two fire exits? And there's all these like crazy things. It took a lot of money up front. And kind of halfway through the first year, I think I joined Amazon. And I got a really healthy salary. I got some sign-on bonuses. I got some shares, and kind of funny enough, me flogging off my Amazon shares kind of funded the company as it grew.
Brilliant, brilliant. Just as well, like with the kind of juxtaposition of whiskey versus gin, I think there's some like special requirement for something to be classified as Irish whiskey. Is there anything like that with gin with regard to like legal requirements and stuff like that?
Yeah, so they've just brought in what's called a GI, so which is a geographical indicator to be called Irish gin. It has to be made in the island of Ireland. Juniper has to be the predominant taste. Um, and I think it has to be made where it said it's made. So I know that there was people saying that um, some distillery where they don't actually have a distillery. It's just a bonded warehouse in the middle of an industrial estate somewhere, or they're a subcontracted brand. I know there's been things about that have come up. With whiskey, the technical file is a lot more stringent, so you have to have your ingredients, what it's made up of, so whether it's malted or unmalted barley, other cereals. You're only allowed to use certain ratios. Then it has to be matured in the matured on the island of Ireland for over 3 years, and then it has to be bottled in a compliant site. So as in, you can't just lob it into a bottle and say, "Yeah, that's Irish whiskey." It has to be bottled and cited and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and talk to us a little bit about like what your roadmap looks like if we take let's say like this decade and focusing just on more gin for a second. Like, are you in any other countries currently? Are you like building a strategy for international expansion at all, or just focusing on Ireland?
Yeah, so our next 12 months is a lot of the US. So we've got a 20 state strategy there for over the next 3 years. We're doing a lot on direct to consumer. So that's our next big game changer. Whiskey comes out next year. We laid down some whiskey last year through a contract distiller, but using grain that we picked out to our own mash bill. Hopefully, we're going to be distilling our own whiskey next year. And then we'll have our bottled, blended and bottled version out next year as well. So there's a lot of stuff happening in that regard. Then hopefully, once there's some stock laid down in about 5 or 6, 7 years, that'll all good. We'll possibly get a second building, and yeah, maybe open a tourist attraction. Who knows?
Fantastic. Yeah, I'd be a pretty big whiskey guy myself. I did sober October, but it was my birthday right at the very end of September. So I've a bottle of Bushmills that I've waiting downstairs that I still haven't opened yet. But a tourist attraction sounds fantastic. I know obviously the Guinness brewery, Guinness factory, I mean, gets a huge amount of like attraction and traffic, but the Jameson one does as well. And I think there's another one in Dublin as well. So I'll be keeping my eyes peeled for that. There was something else I had to ask you on. I know a lot of people, and myself included. I'm an MMA fan, more importantly, a whiskey fan, like I say. And I was fascinated by Conor McGregor's venture into the spirits industry. Look, I've tasted proper 12 myself, and it's nothing too special in my opinion. I have to be honest. But he seems to be doing very well over in the States, which you've just alluded to. And I even read back in April, I think earlier this year, UFC star and his partners, they sold their majority stake in Proper 12 to a company called Proximo Spirits. But it was worth like 600 million US dollars. What do you make of celebrities just walking into industries and seeing instant success? And do you think it's like irrespective of the quality of the product?
Well, you see quite often. You see influencers launching makeup brands. You see people launching eyelash brands. When you control the route to market, or you control the eyes that look at the market, you can enter pretty much anything. So, from a celebrity point of view, you see The Rock as a tequila. You see the lads from Breaking Bad have a tequila called Dos Hombres. Cara Delevingne has her Prosecco, Bella Vita. Of George Clooney probably did the best out of his. I think George Clooney sold out his Casamigos was sold out to Diageo for $1 billion. So yeah, like it's not an instant guarantee of success. Like the product still has to be good, but it takes the right celebrity in the right place. Like for example, you couldn't have a celebrity that isn't associated with something like so Conor McGregor launching a fake tan business wouldn't really work. Um, like it might, or like fuck it, he's proved us like he can do pretty much anything, so it might work. But I can't see it working. um, Celebrity doesn't guarantee results, but I do think they had a very good team. They had their the guy who set this up for him also set up the Rocks Tequila, and basically just does celebrity collaborations, puts in all the foundations, and obviously Connor got the world's eyes watching on it when he pulled out a bottle of proper 12 and started mouthing off. So when you've got that much free publicity, it definitely helps.
Yeah, it's almost like easy attention, those endorsements. Um, I gotta ask you though, coming on the back of COVID, I was wondering, what was that experience like for you running a gin business, and has there been any lessons you're going to bring in now throughout the next decade?
So it was good and bad, really. So bad in terms of sales. So our business is 95% built in the on trade. Because when you have a bottle here that's €20 and you have a bottle here that's €40, the value perception is completely different. But when you're in a bar, you've got a premium gin that's 50 cent more, or you've got your standard 20 quid bottle that's 50 cent less. You're probably going to spend that extra 50 cent. Um, so it kind of came down to a couple of things. We realized that we were kind of heavily reliant on the on trade. So we spun out a white label to a big international retailer, and that's 7 countries now. Then the other thing that we realized that we need to do was we need to stop being so dependent on our importers and wholesalers and retailers, because we didn't really know who our customers were. So we went direct to consumer. So that was a big thing, controlling our own destiny and being able to work backwards from the data. So we couldn't figure out who we were marketing to. So now we know that a lot better. Um, and then I suppose we made sanitizer, because it's very similar. It's just alcohol, glycerin, hydrogen peroxide. So we made a lot of that for the hospitals and kind of thing, and to pharmacies and retail. Um, so yeah, it's going forward. I think we've kind of learned that we need to really diversify the income. Don't depend on one thing. And we kind of built a little bit of like crypto strategy and crypto trading into the business in order to kind of keep ourselves going while while the cash was not being made in the on trade.
Could you actually talk to us a bit more about that crypto strategy, or are you keeping it under the books?
It's all kind of fairly straightforward. So what we do is we have a certain amount of crypto that we hold on our books. We built some bots to do things like find the RSI. If it's over 70, buy, look for a 1% up, sell. So really, really simple. And then we started doing more things around sentiment analysis and on-chain analysis. Now, obviously, because a bunch of nerds who used to work in tech companies and are now making booze, we kind of went back to doing tech stuff. So what we did was then we found, when was the right time to buy, and what we're trying to do is do swing trades. So buy low, sell high, but automate the entire thing so that you didn't have to sit there and have any human error. And it worked out quite well. Like some months we were turning back 25, 30%. Some days we were turning up 100%. So it's all really like, because the market is so volatile, it's really, really mileage varies.
And what was the exposure like in the context of like the capital of the company? Was it a lot, or was it, did you find it was a small amount earning a large return?
A small amount of earning a large return. So we did two things. One, we did regular trading, and then two, we did margin trading. And with the margin trading, the risk is obviously higher, but you get way better returns.
I've actually recently started trying to learn more about crypto myself because I've been an extreme pessimist, and I'd rather be the guy who's winning on the other side than the extreme pessimist, if you get me. So I'm trying to start with Bitcoin and debunk all the arguments against it. Governments will ban it; it has no intrinsic value, etc., etc. I was wondering though, outside margin, do you have your own specific investment strategy when it comes to crypto?
Buy low, sell high. Like that's pretty much it. Uh, no, so it comes down to a couple of it comes down to a couple of things. It comes down to so you look for the technical prowess of the project, right? You look for the amount of people that are backing it. So when you see a Telegram group with a lot of people that are pushing it, that's a good sign. You're looking for the market cap of a coin. You're looking for how many coins are being minted. So like I don't know if you know Shibu coin became like the 11th best fucking asset in the world, or the 11th biggest crypto asset in the world. Um, and it was one of those things where we put some cash into it early on. Like I put 500 quid into it with a mate of mine, and that turned into 3 grand. And I was like, look, let's just cash out. We've made some money on this joke dog coin thing. That's grand, and we did that. Now, the total circulating supply of Shiba coin is 100 quadrillion tokens. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen that many zeros. It's a lot of zeros, right? So it could never reach a penny. So if it was to reach a penny, it would be worth, is it 4 trillion, which is 25% more than the current entire market cap of crypto. Yeah, so don't invest in shit coins. I look for things with that solve problems, the same ways you invest in any business. And that's kind of what they are. Like the projects are businesses. So QNT is one of the ones that I really like. It's an over ledger. I really like Link, Dot, which like it's so early in the crypto game that the chains don't even talk to each other. So you can't move it from one chain to another. You have to use a bridge, and there's all these other things, and it's really messy. So Dot is solving that. Ethereum is quite good. I think it's a really good store of value. Um, yeah. So sorry, I've just rambled on there about yeah, about the cryptos.
What's your specific thoughts on Bitcoin? Because obviously I'm doing a lot of research on it at the moment, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Um, what are my specific thoughts? So my specific thoughts at the moment are it's probably going to go to about 83 to 95k between now and January. I then think we'll have a correction. We'll probably we're in the what's called the fifth phase of an Elliott wave for a bull market, um, and we're probably going to lose about 85% value in February onwards next year. So yeah, if you want to get in, cash out. But as Dermot Desmond says, is always sell too early.
And what are your thoughts on, like what I'm kind of seeing is the big thesis behind Bitcoin is that it is this mechanism to basically detach currencies from government. Do you think that's going to play out as, global dominant currency, or even more, you'll see more countries adopting it as its national currency?
I don't see people. So as a currency, it doesn't really work because the speed of transaction is far too slow. There are things that are built far better for it. Like Dash is being used in South America as a currency and as a transactional payment. Do I think it's like a reserve currency? Possibly. So that someone's able to kind of go, okay, well, we hold this much Bitcoin and that has X amount of intrinsic value. Um, yeah, I'm not sure I see it becoming like I think more banks will trade it. I think they'll open up asset classes. I think that as more money floods in, the volatility will become less and less, and it'll become harder and harder to make money.
Yeah. Just moving on, I suppose a little bit from crypto. Don't wanna catch you off guard, but myself and Sam, but Sam especially, will be fairly interested in that. So I'm sure we could go on a tangent and ask you a ton of questions. I do want to stay on the topic of tech because I know it's something that you're quite into. But moving on from more Gin, you're obviously an entrepreneur at heart, working on some other projects. You did mention Tipple a little bit earlier. Do you want to just go into that a little bit more and just explain what some of the plans are for the near medium future with Tipple?
Yeah, I suppose to understand Tiffany, you almost need to understand about how the alcohol industry works. So what happens is you have a manufacturer or a brand, and then you have to appoint an importer, and then a distributor, and then the retailer in order to get to a customer. And generally, importers and distributors can be gatekeepers. So they're like, yeah, no, like we like your brand and everything, but we've enough gins, or we already have a gin, and it becomes sort of like a land grab. And it kind of keeps people out. So in order to like level the playing field, we decided to build a digital first distributor where we allow a drinks company to sell directly to their customers in whatever country they want across Europe, using our infrastructure. So we handle all the taxes, the legals, the compliance, the duties, and the VATs. Um, and it was born out of my own frustration, trying to fulfill orders inside Europe. So yeah, it's built as an infrastructure as a service. Like we stay in the background, you never see us. It operates out of our warehouses, and yeah, like we're just here to help other brands succeed.
And I have another question as well. Just I'm going to veer not back into crypto, but I've seen like a lot of Twitter threads, like Zuck changing Facebook's name, the metaverse, and all this. And as someone who's pretty immersed in the world of tech over the last decade or so, I was wondering, what are your predictions over the next few years, and are there any companies in particular that excite you?
No, I haven't seen anything that's excited me in a long time. I thought Tesla was pretty interesting, but I don't know if you've ever sat in a Tesla. I really think that they're doing incredible things, but I can't see them maintaining their leadership. Um,
Neuralink wouldn't.
no, well, I've seen it. Like, isn't yes, it's cool, but it's also incredibly invasive. So does that excite me? Probably not. I don't know if my mind is a great place to be. There's just too many hamsters on treadmills. Um, so, like, there was a company called Magic Leap who do kind of really cool a way of interacting with things. I thought that was a really interesting place. I thought that was going to be the next big thing after the mouse.
Oh, is that the little bar yoke where you could basically into?
So I had the idea of like being in Minority Report and being able to like do all these sort of like crazy things with it. So that was kind of like the one of the big ones that I liked. There's a few battery tech companies out of Israel that are experimenting with things like graphene for lightweight batteries, which sounds incredible if we can solve the battery problem. Toyota actually is another one. I know this is like, wow, it's not really a startup, but they are really working on the hydrogen battery. I don't know if you guys know about hydrogen power or anything like that. Basically, it generates electricity, and the byproduct is water. So it's super clean. And do you have children in mind mining lithium? No.
Yeah, certainly does sound interesting. Um, we're seeing a lot of chat in modern business literature about like data literacy, data driven decision making, and in your roles plural. I know you're juggling a few plates at the moment. On how big of a role is data playing in your own decision making process, and are there any specific tools that you're using for like analyzing trends or building predictive models?
Yeah, so in terms of the gin stuff, We use we use a lot of Excel for the gin, and we're going to build models based on that and forecasting and all that. With the crypto, we use a lot of Python and R, and with Tipple, uh, Tipple is kind of built. So we're building it out. We're building out data lakes. So we actually haven't started to analyze the data for it. So a lot of our decisions have been made along Google Trends, along what people are searching for, search data along Amazon to just find new products that were new products out of the gin. So if someone's searching for an apple gin, we've kind of got that and gone, okay, well, there's been an uptick in this. Why is that exactly? And then building our products around that.
Fascinating. Yeah, I asked purely because I work for a company which provides data literacy training, but I also have a friend of mine who works for Datadog. He's a software engineer and he's just using Python a lot in his spare time for just building out different like machine learning apps and stuff like that. So it's something I'm pretty interested in. But Owen, I just have one last question for you today. I know you're a big car fan. Wondering a couple of things, I suppose. What car are you driving at the moment or over the last while? And two, what's the car that you have in your head that you hope to be driving in 10 years if the crypto and all the businesses you're working on go to plan?
So at the moment, I've actually sold all my toy cars. I'm driving a van, which is not where people would expect me to be. And I'm waiting to see how the market plays out. I really have an eye on either a V8 Vantage, a 2006 V8 Vantage, or an old 964 Porsche. So that'll probably be either the next two buys or a 1970s Datsun 240Z. So they'll be like one of the next things. So if I was to like if everything works out, I won't drive anymore. I'll probably have a G wagon or something. An electric G wagon would be ideal. Um, but I think the next daily car I'd like to go electric. I've heard really good things about the Volvos, the Polestars. Um, I've heard great things about the Audis, the Audi GT Trons, and then the Porsche Taycan as well. But Porsche Taycan looks a bit funky, so I think the Audi's a better looking car. But yeah, if I was to go like dream car, no money, no object, it's a tough one. But I'd probably go for like a Lamborghini Diablo or like something really 80s. Like I'd probably go full Wolf of Wall Street with a Countach. Uh, what about you guys? What are the dream cars?
Ooh, I gotta go with the Audi R8 Ironman right there.
Yeah, the RA is a go-to. I think a lot of people like that car, like myself. Um, For me, like I've always just wanted a big Range Rover. Like I like some sort of off road car. I think I'd love that would be my dream car. Nothing too fancy, but I think we'll leave it there. Hopefully, when you do get your hands on one of those in the not so distant future. But look, really appreciate your time today. Fascinating conversation. I know we covered a few things there. Before we let you go, do you want to just give our audience an idea of where they can go to find out a little bit more about you?
Fuck. Don't look up me. uh, I, I would say look up moreirishgin.com or look up heytipple.com. Both of those two projects that I'm working on.
Brilliant. Well, Owen, thank you again. And for everyone listening, we'll catch you in the next one.